Coming to you from Star Studios in Denton, Texas, and Tom Collins Signs in Limerick, Ireland. This is Coffee with a Sign Painter, a podcast hosted by sign painter Sean Starr and Tom Collins. This groovy soundtrack was written and performed by Fergal Lawler of the Cranberries. Thanks, Fergal.
Okay, record is on. I want to vent because this has been 2 months of very much stressful, crazy stuff going on, and trying to, get things caught up and bills caught up and taxes caught up and everything else. And we had all of this great material for last month's episode that was recorded in Cleveland when we were up there for Weapons of Mass Creation. And I got the audio files, and the people I was interviewing, their microphones were not recording. So very frustrated, very upset. But what you gonna do?
On your end, it sounded fine until you got the files back, and then nothing.
Yeah, we had a great interview. We had some, it was really good energy. It was really cool because we got to interview this couple that we knew from here in Denton.
Okay.
They originally were from Cleveland that had just moved back, and they messaged us and said, hey, we're going to come to the thing there. And so we were really excited. We were like, hey, this is super cool. And then did the interview. Everything went great, and the audio files are unusable, so a little frustrated with that.
I bet. And look, do you think maybe they might be willing to call in and have a coffee with you in person in your own, in your own controlled environment where you could get them to chat away again?
Yeah, and that's the thing that's working out good is next month they're going to be back down here for some event that they're participating in, and so I'll just drag them in the studio and be able to do it then.
Yeah.
But still frustrating. And most of it, I think, is just I've had, and as I know you have as well, like the last 30 to 45 days have been insane. Trying to catch up, trying to, we had a downturn where we were dead for a few weeks, and followed by just a massive inundation of phone calls. So then you're trying to catch up, and then you're trying to keep up with everything, and very stressful. I think this is an important thing to address for people who are either getting into the business or have done it for a little while. Is the feast or famine aspect to it can get maddening at times.
Yeah. And exactly, and learning to somehow work with that.
Yeah.
Cope with it. It's a job in itself, managing the stress of it. And then when things work out, it's great, and you think, what was I worried about? But there's always more stress around the corner.
It always comes to mind. Sure. I think this is what people who are addicted to gambling, who are sitting in Vegas in front of a slot machine, I think this is what they go through. But except I don't have, maybe this is my vice. I don't know. I don't have that vice, so I can't relate. But at the same time, I think that's the cracked out crazy feeling you get where you're all exhilarated because these cool projects are coming in, you're getting creative and money's coming in, things are great. And then you wake up one morning and things have slowed down and bills are coming due and IRS just sent me a letter and blah, 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 blah.
The main difference, Sean, is you're not sitting there in your adult diapers,
Well, true. Well, not yet anyway, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, but there is. I know I've spoken to other creative people and people who are, doing something that's a million miles from this, but they go through the same stuff as well.
Yeah.
It must be part of this whole thing where you kind of have to accept that there is this, this slight insane thing that goes on when you work in a creative sphere in some way or another, that there's all this kind of energy that goes into it to kind of create, to come up with the ideas that you have, that you want to express and produce, and then all the anxiety around that, and then getting over that, and then trying to get to the place where you can do it, and then all those challenges.
It's maddening.
It is very much so, and you've all these things going against you, like the weather, and in our profession anyway, you know, physically you can be up very tall buildings and on precarious scaffold and different, you know, obstacles and challenges there as well, as all the other stuff, you know. So there's lots of things to be.
Well, and the realization, you know, has hit me is like, am I addicted to it? Like, if it smoothed out, would I be unhappy? And I probably would. And that's really ridiculous. It's like 25 plus years of up and down, you know, to where I'm like, at this point, I think if things were just consistently smooth, I might pull my hair out. So I don't know.
Well, have you ever had it consistently smooth for a long period, or has it always been a bit like that?
Yeah, you know, in fairness, we probably had a stretch of about 5 years where it was pretty consistent. And, you know, and you can't ever put your finger on why things shift or change. And, you know, and it's what I think what's hard is like, you know, looking over the figures, you know, for, you know, like the last 12 months or 6 months or whatever, it's like the income is staying around the same. It's just, it's a lot more volatile this year for some reason. And so, you know, you'll hit dead spots, you start panicking, then you hit a busy spot, but it's so busy, it's like, I don't know how to keep up with this.
Yeah.
And you're taking, you know, I think in those periods you take more work that you would normally turn down.
Yeah.
The type of work especially, because, you know, you're like, well, that's kind of not really my bag, or that's not creative enough and I don't really want to mess with it. So you're grabbing those jobs because, like, well, I got to play catch up.
Lately.
You know, so I don't know.
I don't know either, and I was only thinking about it the same thing that somebody was asking me recently about, you know, planning ahead and all this kind of stuff, and you know, like yourself, you know, a lot of the stuff that just kind of comes my way, I try and, you know, unless there's some really, you know, terrible gut feeling about the whole thing, I try and do it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of this stuff, you know, there can be delays along the way where things are suddenly held up because of other factors that have nothing to do with me. But I get kind of, you know, a few jobs like that at the moment where they're sort of in limbo in the studio, and, you know, the clients are you know, they're going to need them at some point, and it's a case of, you know, to give me something to kind of keep them, you know, live to some extent, but not enough so I can finish them and
get a check.
Yeah. And, you know, they're juggling other things and spinning other plates, and so I end up, like yourself, taking on other things more maybe than I should, but it's because someone somewhere hopefully will pay me out of this bundle of jobs where I can, you know, pay my bills and keep going and have enough there so I can then do other things that I need to do, that I want to do.
And that brings up a whole nother question, which you know, drives me crazy, is like, do you wake up when you're in your mid to late 60s and say, good God, what have I done?
Well, maybe. I hope that, you know, I don't know. I think it's. I'm not far off that. I mean, I'm 46 now, and, you know, the last kind of few years, I've really, you know, I've learned a lot in the last few years, more than I have over the last 20 years of doing this.
Uh-huh.
And I think what I'm really learning, what's really sinking in, is like, you know, geez, you know, don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it's only a sign, you know.
Right.
All those kind of things are beginning to really sink in. And yeah, there's a couple of jobs that are going on around where I'm working at the moment, nearby, that look like kamikaze kind of jobs that I'm just so grateful I'm not in the middle of them. I saw them coming, and I stepped to one side, and I had enough coming through the the business and the account and all that kind of stuff. And one or two clients I have from over the summer are paying their bill in stage payments, and they're doing it on time, which is I can't believe, So it's taken all kinds of pressure off me to kind of say, actually no, I don't need. So for once I'm in a position. It's not going to last forever, I know that. But for once I'm in a position where I can kind of enjoy it a little bit instead of enduring it,
Right.
And so it's given me back a little bit of time in my hands to kind of, daydream about other projects. And this is the scary thing. This is where I now go into messing up everything that's going really well for me by kind of daydreaming about other projects, and side projects.
And that's totally cyclical too, because I go through that where it's like things will kind of smooth out and the money's coming in at a normal pace or whatever, and so you have maybe a day or two during the week where you can just kind of start addressing other things, and you kind of get used to that, and then it's the one or the other. Then things will like taper down and you start freaking out, and then, or they go the other route where you're just you'll get 5-6 emails or phone calls in one day, and you start doing bids and everything else. Next thing you know, they're scheduling and sending deposits, and you're like, So,
well, this is the thing. It's not for the faint-hearted, and maybe in a way it's a good thing, because then the whole market would be completely.
Yeah, it weeds out a lot of people, I think, just because it's stressful stuff.
Absolutely, and not everyone is able to. I mean, I equate it to out-of-work actor syndrome. There's this anxiety that's there, or it used to be there an awful lot, where I was working on something, and suddenly it would hit me in the middle of it. I've nothing lined up after this, and certainly in the early days it would be like that a lot. And I never thought I'd be in a position where the work would find me. I had to find it so much at the beginning.
Yeah.
Do a lot of kind of cold calling and I never went down the road of these networking kind of groups, these early morning networking groups.
I tried that years ago. It was not for me. Stand
up like you were at an AA meeting and say, "I'm Sean and I'm a sign painter."
Yeah, and like absolutely no one gets what it is that you do, and they're asking you to do a digital print banner or something. You're like, that's not at all what I do. I don't know, not for me. Yeah. I suppose if you had a more mainstream, modern, digitally type of sign shop, it might work out good for somebody. But for someone who's creating one-off custom pieces, one after another of whatever, it's like I don't think the people that are involved in those things typically really understand what the heck we're doing.
No, and anyway, do you know what? Do you really want to work for other people that kind of, a lot of the time, within 10 seconds, at the moment especially, because I have my wits about me and I'm a bit fresher after a few months of not burning the candle at both ends, having a little bit of a break over the summer and spending a bit of time at home. Just I made a pirate ship in the garden.
Nice.
It was brilliant. All these kind of power tools that I was that hadn't been used in years, and it's great fun. And but anyway, there's a few calls that come in, and my personal favorites are the ones where they don't even introduce themselves and they just kind of go straight into what they want.
Right.
People.
I love the hello. How much is a sign? And I still get those on a regular basis. It's just like, what are you talking about?
Just straight into it. 35,000.
Yeah.
How much it is, and there's a lot of dead air. But yeah, you're right. It's one of those things where, like, I want to enjoy it and not endure it anymore. And life is short. I don't like. My biggest fear is that I'll be in the middle of some job for some, heartbreaker of a client, and that'll be it. Game over. A grand piano will fall on me from a height, and it'll be end of story, right? And I'll have gone out on some, bum note.
Right.
I'll have to go out on a high note,
Yeah.
Hopefully, And so I'm being extremely selective, and in a way that makes them want me even more, which is the whole kind of reverse psychology backfiring on me thing that I expected. So I'm having a few people who won't go away,
Yeah.
And
we're both looking down the same barrel. I'm 48. I turned 50 in 2 years, and I'm like, that number, like that milestone, is like, holy crap. I'm going to be on that other side of that, and then you got to start figuring out things in a different way. So yeah, lots of contemplation going on my end of just like, do I want to be, 12 years down the road, 60 years old, up on a ladder on the side of a building in Texas, in the hot sun? Like, that's going to probably be a pretty crappy scenario. I don't know.
Well, yeah, the thing about projecting into the future that far ahead is that, and that's you might be, but wouldn't it be great if it was on your terms,
Yeah, right. No, and it's not healthy to catastrophize and be like, oh, what'll this be like? But it's like we've joked about before. I think we both have a lot of Larry David in us, in our DNA somewhere. It's like, you psych yourself out and you worry about all this stuff that in reality may never even pan out that way, but
sure. What
are you going to do? I don't know how to shut it off.
No. The volume just goes down a little bit.
Yeah.
On a good day, but it's always there, isn't it? This kind of, this kind of autocritic, of like, the work isn't good enough, God, you're nearly 50, you should be in a stretch limo, driven to work by your chauffeur. It's nonsense. It's complete nonsense.
It is.
What?
It's a complete oversight of the important things, which, like what you're describing, like building a pirate ship in the backyard, it's like those are the important things, like what you're doing with your family and friends.
Yeah, if you can put enough on the table. I know, like, we all want to leave, monuments to our greatness behind, like the pyramids or whatever, right? if you can get past that and you can just sort of say, well, I'll put food on the table. I paid my taxes on time. I haven't got anyone screaming at me for anything major, and and they're talking to you, and they your friends and family want to spend time with you, where you're not obsessing about work all the time.
Right.
Like I used to. And actually, when I first started doing this, Nikki used to say, I just can't take this. I cannot take listening to all of this, all of the time. And then a few years went by, and she actually started her own business, and she said, oh my God, I get it now. Yeah, absolutely. You're obsessed with it, trying to do the best you can. And that's not like, is that so bad to want to do the best you can and be on time and say what you're going to do,
be
and
passionate about it, and to be excited and wanting to, if someone's giving you their hard-earned money, you want to give them the best that you can. I think that's an honorable thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And have a bit left over for Sean and Kaylee and your nearest and dearest.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Right. And that's not a bad thing, but it's always a balancing act of trying to find a way to, like, keep yourself from going down the dark tunnel while still taking care of things, Well,
I know there's a lot of people probably looking at what you're doing, from their office, cubicle, sometimes. When you're working outside in the heat that you're complaining about, you know what I mean? And going, wow.
Oh, God, this reminds me something I was going to mention to you. I know we were messaging last week, just this scenario of this job that went south that just added to all of the stress,
Okay.
So imagine the receptionist desk is 8 feet behind you, and you're painting this wall with this multicolored logo stripe, very geometric, so everything's got to be dead on.
Okay.
So I had Cole with me, and we're, laying this all out, and we get everything looking, right and everything. we start rolling out these stripes with different colors that overlap.
Okay.
And we were using painter's tape, low-tack painter's tape, which is made to make that clean edge without peeling anything up.
Yeah,
and
no bleeds.
We go and we start peeling, and huge chunks of the original color are peeling off the wall.
Yeah, I've been there. It's the earth stops rotating in that moment.
Yeah, you know, like in the movies where it goes, and it's like a close-up on a guy's head or whatever? That was that moment.
Yeah, it's the scene in Jaws when the guy's at the beach, and it's awful. It's terrible. It really is. And I've been there.
Right next to the reception desk is a glass window, a bank of glass windows that is the entire people that run this company are all sitting in there having a conference meeting, watching as we're ripping massive amounts of paint off their wall. And
how much are we paying that guy?
Yeah, exactly. These conversations were happening, and you're like, every inch, you're like, please God, don't let there be more that comes off. Then more and more and more. It looked like the most cancerous, horrible thing, and there was no way to fix it and remedy it properly.
Well, this also leads into kind of, we're still learning all the time, and sometimes, these tapes, they promise the earth and they don't deliver, and the walls.
It was very clear what had happened, though, is this company had just moved in. They're on the 10th floor of this high-rise downtown Dallas, this super snooty thing, and whoever had painted this wall, they had it painted this special color, and then we were going to do our part on top. And whoever had painted it, you could tell that they put the mud down. I don't know if this is the same thing you guys have over there, but it's basically like what would you call it?
Like a primer coat or something?
It's thicker, so it like smooths out all the rough spots and that kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
So
surface filler kind of.
Filler basically. So they had put that down, but it wasn't completely dry.
And then they painted over it.
And you could even see spots where it was bubbling through, like the moisture was trying to get out. So then, of course, as we lay tape on it, it's ripping in huge sections.
Unfortunately, the client just sees what you did, not what they did.
Yeah, that was the first day. We got the original paint. They had a gallon of it in the back. We got that. We touched everything up. From straight on, it looked pretty good. Kind of. And,
but like it's matte, right? It's kind of water-based matte. Really, you can get away with murder.
Pretty good, right? So, but then the next morning, we come in and there's a different guy that I hadn't interacted with, and he's like, what's the deal with this? What's the deal with this? And is picking everything out. And I just, fortunately, there was enough evidence that you've got this issue with your wall because there's bubbling and stuff that we didn't, notice when we taped it out. But still, you're just like, your heart sinks and you're like...
You are, because you're defending. And actually, as a person, you're supposed to be expressing, but instead you end up defending. It's really...
Right.
It's not in our DNA, It's
no.
terrible.
And then, of course, since that happened, when we go into the other room to paint this big logo on the wall, then the guy's like, are you sure that's level? Are you sure this? Are you sure that space is right? And so I'm having to verify and show him with the tape measure that it's all dead on and everything else. And it's just like, just so, good Lord, I'm so done with this kind of a thing, So, but that part of the job came out flawless. So hopefully we're good. I don't know.
Yeah, well, look, they're the days you just have to swallow hard and get through them, isn't it?
Yeah. No, there's nothing else you can do. And I even told the guy, he's like, we noticed when we were doing our conference yesterday that, all this paint was peeling. And I said, look, I made a judgment call. You had two choices. Either I stopped midstream with your wall looking terrible and said, you guys got to get this wall redone and repainted. We'll come back when it's fixed. or we can, try to get it dialed in and so that it looks presentable, which is what we did. And he respected that. He was like, okay. And fortunately, he did say too, he said, I understand what you're saying because the house I just had built is having the same problem with the sheetrock. So
he was okay.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I still haven't received the final part of my payment, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm sure it'll be all right. It's good, but I think in those situations, you kind of in the early days again, it's harder to find your voice, and it's harder to kind of say, actually, this is what's going on here. This is really what's going on. And I know, for me, I mightn't have been I don't know if I wasn't able to be as assertive, maybe, or as, I don't know, they're confrontational situations. They're not easy situations to be in.
Years ago, I would have backed down and been like, oh, this is my fault kind of a thing. And it's like, no, this is clearly not my fault. I've done these type of jobs a million times using tape. This is not my problem. This is your problem.
Yeah, I like to tell them it's a YP, not an NP.
Yeah. There you go. I don't know how that would go over, but there you go.
But listen, come here. This is getting back to this thing about kind of having to take on stuff that you don't always really want to do. But when you're in a position to kind of work for do the jobs you want and work for the people you want to work for, and it's all going well. Those issues, when and if they do come up, they're never a big issue because you're it's like it's more fun based, kind of lighter. You know what I mean? And things, if they do come up, like I'm on a job at the moment, God, and there's a crack in the window. These huge windows.
Okay. Is that the one you're doing all that silver leaf on? Or
white gold and silver. Yeah, combo. And but it's okay because we had it checked out and it's structurally all right. It's just and it's type of glass that it will never explode or fall in. It'll just the crack is as big as it's ever going to get. But it just looks. Everyone goes, oh, what's the story with the crack?
Right.
And so I think we're going to cosmetically hide it with some,
design element or something.
Yeah. And it'll just take your eye away from it. But the thing is, they have these. This guy came in to clean the windows because there was all these other vinyl lettering designs on it.
Uh-huh.
I said, look, you need to get someone in to clean up the windows, get them ready for me. And so this guy came in, a very nice guy, French guy, and we were talking about Van Morrison, writing songs about window cleaners. Nice guy, we're chatting away, and he did a really good job. And then I came in and I kind of went at it on the area that I was working on with the Bon Ami, just to kind of get it really squeaky clean. And even though we're going for a distressed, kind of chipped antique effect, you still want the water to kind of work in a certain way. And sometimes if you don't have the surface really clean, it goes into these weird, sort of almost like in the Terminator 2 movie where the guy kept kind of they couldn't kill him and it kept kind of,
goes wherever you don't want it to go.
Exactly. But this was so I cleaned it off and I was working on it, and then a cleaning company came in to steam clean the kitchen, and all the condensation was hitting the glass, and I couldn't. There was a couple of days where I said, "Listen, I'm out of here. I can't work on this. I'll come back when you're further along." And there's loads of there's loads of other things I can be doing. So it didn't put me out. Their deadline is kind of a bit flexible, so it was fine. And but I came in one day just to kind of check on something, and all the old vinyl lettering that had been on the windows over various different businesses, you could see it on the glass through the steam. So the condensation was
the ghosting or whatever.
Ghosting, yeah. And it was, I mean, it was just this horror of, oh no, what have I done? Because I've started work on it, I'm going to do all this work again. And then the second it evaporated, it was fine, it was perfect, and you couldn't for the life, if you had to swear on a Bible that you saw it, nobody would believe you because it wasn't there, And I remember saying to the designer, I said, look, just letting you know, if you do have a steam build-up going on, it's going to be because of X, Y, and Z. But my area is fine where I've done, And he was laughing it off, saying, look, come here, look, the clients chose not to replace the windows. The landlord didn't want to incur the cost of it. They had someone come in and check it out. It's fine, but again, you're in that moment for a couple of seconds where you kind of feel, oh no, I'm going to have to do all this again, and for free, and you spent a bunch of days on it, and look.
So okay, here's a segue. So Cole Bridges, who has worked with me for 4 years now, I think. I don't know if you've ever interacted with Cole.
I might have had the odd Instagram, comment here and there.
He just walked in. So why don't you ask him some questions?
Bring him on.
There you go. Talk into that.
Well, howdy doody.
Hi, Cole. How are you?
Good. Nice to meet you in person.
Nice to meet you. Yeah, kind of. So, welcome to the hot seat.
He said, ask me hard questions.
Oh yeah. Okay. So, what kind of breakdance moves can you bust out on the air?
Some pretty horrible ones. Nothing too great. Just enough to embarrass myself and make other people laugh. So that works for me. Nothing too great. I tried the head move once and I hit something, and then decided to try to spin on your head. Wasn't a good idea.
Do people still do that?
Not for long, I think, because there's a lot of neck problems that come on afterwards if you continue to do so, I think. But it wasn't too bad.
Yeah. Well, when I was 15, 16, the whole breakdance thing kicked off,
Oh, yeah?
And suddenly everybody was kind of listening to Grandmaster Flash and Run DMC and all this kind of stuff. And it was fun actually for a while,
So what moves can you break down? Can you do something? Can you still break down some moves?
Again, I'm 46 now. We just covered that before you came in. We're trading aches and pains and war stories. But I have to say that the odd time I'm watching something on TV or something, and there's someone doing these kind of semi breakdance kind of moves. Like, oh yeah, I remember that.
That's from my time. Yeah, I like it.
That's my time.
It's still around somehow. Yeah.
So how old are you?
24. I had to think about it.
Oh, for you, yeah. Same age I was when I took up a brush for the first time.
Oh yeah.
Sign writing, yeah. But you've been at it a few years now, right?
Yeah. When I moved back to the States, I needed some work, and my parents had just met Sean, and he needed an apprentice because he didn't have anyone around that would really working on it, and so I started working with him.
And where were you living before that?
I lived for a year in China and then a year in New York.
Cool.
Yeah.
How do you end up in China?
Just teaching English. I wanted to go explore a little bit and check it out. But,
right. Was it a good experience?
Oh, I miss it a lot, actually. I love it over there.
Okay. Right.
Different world.
People are great, they?
Yeah, they really are. They're I love the hospitality of people.
Sure.
Really sweet.
And the food, of course.
Man, I miss the food so much. So much. Actually, Sean and I just went to a Chinese restaurant the other day that had some really good, legitimate Chinese food.
Cool.
We threw down. I had stuff all over my shirt. It was really embarrassing. Then we tried to go somewhere afterwards, and I was just like, man, I look like a 3-year-old just got in a food fight. But, it was all right. It was worth it.
What's that?
It was worth it. It was good.
Yeah. A friend of mine was there, and he was telling me that the street food, you see some really crazy stuff on the street,
Oh, yeah.
Like insects and deep fried insects. And,
it sound. This is gonna sound crazy too. They sound grosser than they are because they're deep fried. So it's kind of like, and then they're like seasoned with stuff. So at a certain point, it's like whatever the seasoning tastes like, it just tastes like crunchy seasoning.
Okay.
So it's like a flavored crouton. So.
Well, I remember once I went to a French restaurant trying to impress the Spanish girl I was going out with at the time, and I didn't know what I was ordering. It was all in French, and these snails came out. And oh no! But I had to kind of go, oh right. And she was, yeah, you're having this, escargot. You're having escargot. I was like, yeah. And their little horny heads were sticking out of the house. And there's like this kind of whole apparatus in picking them up, and clamps and
picking
weird
them
stuff.
out, and yeah,
and it was absolutely horrendous looking. But I tell you, it tasted fantastic. It tasted
great,
like chicken.
aren't they? Yeah,
yeah. It's really, really good.
There's this Chinese dish they have with them, and they kind of season them, and they stir fry them, and they'll give you a bucket of stir fried snails, and you see the guys they'll be sitting back on these little plastic chairs and like fold out tables. And they just have their toothpick, and they're just picking them out and eating them. But they're delicious.
On the street.
Yeah.
Just as you walk downtown, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We have this thing as well here called periwinkles.
Periwinkles, huh?
Yeah, periwinkles, and they're again little teeny tiny shellfish that you get here in small little polycles. They're like little coves where you'd have rocks, and the waves come in, and so they're freshwater shellfish and periwinkles. So you can buy them by the bag, and they're really, really salty and tiny little things. But you pick them out with a needle.
Oh, really? They're that small, huh?
Yeah. Huh. And I've never seen them anywhere else. Maybe. Because we're on the Atlantic side of the Western Europe, maybe you might get them in Scotland, but you don't really see them anywhere else around Europe that I've travelled anywhere. But you get these little kind of paper bags full of them, and everybody just eats them in the summer.
Just snack on them.
Yeah,
oh, that's cool.
And I was a kid. I used to think, oh my God,
that's disgusting.
Yeah, and oysters as well. My dad used to love eating oysters, and again I'd run out of the room if I saw him eating them. And then years later, I was drunk. I tried one.
Hey, the first guy that tried it had probably been drunk too.
Yeah.
Those are scary looking things.
So you guys working on something there today?
I just got back from checking out a job down in Dallas and doing some measurements and seeing what the client wants on stuff and breaking down. I gotta work with him on maybe something we can design for it. But
okay, very good.
Kind of just working on that today.
Yeah, and are you enjoying this at the moment?
I love the work. The ups and downs of it kind of gets you a little bit sometimes. That's the hardest part. If it of course, with anything, if you had to steady, it'd be perfect. It'd be like the best.
Yeah. We were just talking about that. Yeah.
Huh?
We were just talking about that.
Ah, okay.
It's still all, it can still be like that all these years later. It just gets, you just have to learn to kind of somehow manage that and not feed that, anxiety when it comes up about it.
Yeah, that's what we Sean and I talk about a lot in the rides to and fro different jobs. Just really kind of discuss, okay, well maybe what else we might do with this, or just different outlets and stuff. And it's fun to talk about, but it's also provides some insight on what we can do to stay steady.
Well, you can get periods as well where you get so busy there isn't time left over to do small things.
Yeah.
And so then you kind of go, oh damn it! I wish during that period I could have enjoyed it more instead of worrying about it more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there was a stretch I think a few years ago where it was Sean, it was like 2 or 3 jobs a week, right? Just really big ones, and I wasn't the one having to design them or anything. I was just there to paint. So for me, it wasn't that bad. I was kind of, that's cool. But poor Sean was just, I think it was stressful, and you don't get to enjoy the job as much.
No, that's true. That's true. And you're dealing with, you're back and forth with the client, and you're managing all their expectations, and you're trying to hit the deadline. There is a lot. And I suppose this is what we were saying earlier, that when you come into this profession, and I think we were all in our mid-20s when we started doing this. It's not really something that a lot of the time you're kind of you're wondering when you're going to turn that corner, when it just becomes steady, and it always seems to be like a ton of work or nothing, and then trying to manage the bills and all the other commitments you have where you want to kind of continue to do this kind of stuff, and so you have to remember to put a bit aside and for a rainy day, and there'd be a lot of rainy days.
Yeah.
You know?
Speaking of rainy days, we're in right now.
So therefore, you're inside.
Yeah. So yeah, but you're right. You gotta kind of. It makes you have to plan ahead for stuff and really think about the future a little bit more.
Especially, if you want to, have a family and have, other, things that you want to do,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's easy if you're just trying to be very simple and not have any plans to do anything, and it's a little bit easier, maybe. But yeah, I don't have kids right now. I'm married, but it'd be difficult to do with kids. I feel like, just
Sure.
I have one of my best friends I grew up with. His dad's a sign painter in the same area that we live in, and
Right.
he's actually my first exposure to sign painting. And I worked
What's
with
his
him, Randy Stark.
Okay.
But when I came back, I did 2 big jobs with him before I met Sean and started regularly doing it. But that's what my friend had said. It was hard for him because he was like, do I go and keep working with my dad and pursue sign painting, or do I try to do something else? Because he grew up where you have your rainy days, but then there'd be 1 month where you just kill it and do really, really good. And then it was just up and down, up and down. So he had a hard time with it. So he knows how to sign paint and do all that stuff, but he doesn't really do that anymore. But that was like his hard part with trying to stick with it. But he loves it too.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and because you do, and it's clear that you do love it. And I have been following you on Instagram and seen, work with Sean as well over the years. I mean, you're going great. You should, and you can see that your heart is in it. And I mean it comes across with all the people that are lifers, I think, that you find a way to make it work,
Yeah. And I've worked in a few different fields, and this one you might struggle in any field, but at least this one you can really enjoy the work you do with it. And I think it's meaningful stuff. You make places look pretty. You put stuff there and make places look good. And I help people's businesses out with it, and I think it's a good field to be in for those things.
Well, yesterday I watched The Magnificent Seven.
I've been wanting to see that. Did you like it?
I did, because I love the original.
Okay.
And, my criticisms of it are few and far between. I mean, the only thing I can really say that I wish there was more of was the theme tune, the big, Magnificent Seven theme tune. There was so many times where it looked like it was kind of going there, and it just kind of changed its mind at the last one. But what really made it for me was the sets and the signs, and there was so much of it.
Were they pretty accurate?
I felt they were, because they were loose and they were a little bit amateur looking at times, and like maybe the blacksmith did it or something, you know what I mean?
It might be close to what happened with Emmy.
What's that?
Might be close to what happened back then with those.
This is the thing, yeah. I remember talking to Sean about this before. And I mean, then there was some really nice work in a saloon on a saloon door, and at one stage there's a big shootout, and I'm terrified that they're going to shoot the door and it's going to get smashed up. But in every Western I've ever seen, there's always like a guy that goes through the window, and of course. I went through the window, and took out some lettering with him, and I remember my old instructor, my old signwriting instructor, the trade school I went to, Jerry Fitzgibbon. He used to always joke about how back in the Wild West, the guys who had the most work were the sign writers and the sign painters. There's all the guys falling through windows, and guys shooting mirrors behind bars with the lovely gold whiskey sign getting smashed up. And,
do you ever imagine yourself being a sign painter back then and being like, man, not again? Well, okay, well, it's actually not too bad. Good for business.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You might even be the guy shooting them out and then go into the next
some little
business card.
Sign painter vigilante shooting out windows at night.
But I mean, would those kind of jobs be really locked into kind of unions and all of that kind of, specialist trades, and it'd be hard to break into, I'd imagine, would they?
Yeah, and I mean, particularly, you're going to go probably over to Hollywood for that kind of stuff, and there's some schools for it. So I haven't really tried in that area. That's not necessarily the route I came about sign painting with. So I just what I've known is pretty much what I've learned from Sean about stuff.
Well, Sean has promised me that if I ever come to Texas, we're going to do Wild West signs.
Oh yeah.
For the showdown.
Oh hey, we'll get some showdown going on.
And barbecue afterwards.
Oh yeah, get some real good barbecue. Yeah, Sean always brags about being out there by you and coming to visit you. He loves that area. He had a good time.
Well, yeah, and you're very welcome if you ever get over here yourself with your better half. You know, we had a visitor last week in California, Sean Glasby. Okay. Really, really good guy. I can't remember where exactly in California. It's a Glasby, an unusual surname, and it's Seann. So you have to tell Sean that he has to add another N to his, because all the cool kids in California are doing it.
Yeah.
I don't care.
No, he doesn't care. How they do
He said he doesn't care how they do it there.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah. Maybe, that could be a good idea for a T-shirt, Sean. But and again, he just showed up because he was over here. I think he's coming back in a couple of weeks with a crew of guys from Brooklyn who are doing. They're like I can't remember what they're called, but they're doing the Google. Google have a huge headquarters here, European headquarters in Dublin, and they're.
Sean goes tax dodging.
Yeah, completely. Actually, here's a little plug for where I am at the moment. I'm in the Apple store.
Oh, yeah.
Called CompuV, and they've facilitated these Skypes from time to time, because when I'm working in town, I just come in and I know them, and they've allowed me to do this here, you know.
Oh, cool.
But again, it's all like, I mean, their whole European operation just funnels through Ireland. So anyway, listen. But yeah, they're coming back in a couple of weeks, to a whole crew of them to abseil down this building and knock out this job.
Wow.
All the patterns are coming in, all pounced, and they're just, you know. And I said, God, like October, November in Ireland is like the rainy season. I said, we don't mind. We'll be down in the pub if we can't work, you know, getting paid for it.
Does it get pretty like heavy rain, or is it just kind of a light constant?
Yeah, well, I suppose there's upside down rain, there's 45-degree angle rain, it's every kind of rain you can possibly imagine here, you know. And the summers seem to be wetter now than the winters.
Okay.
It's global warming, but
it'd be a hard job to do then.
It is. It's very difficult.
Yeah,
it really is. You really have to kind of make hay while the sun shines, and have a good studio set up where you can produce the work on boards and.
As much as you can there, right?
As much as you can there, you know. So it's one of those things that it's a pity that we don't have better weather, because I envy you guys in your 100-degree, you know.
Oh yeah.
I did actually. I know it sounds mad, but it's just like we all wish what we had. We all wish we had what the other people had. You know, then you have it, then you go, oh no, what I had was fine. You know?
It's always a little greener, but I mean, we do have a pretty constant good weather, so that. It's pretty good. We always got. This year's been particularly rainy, but other than that, it's always usually pretty sunny. You can always get a good sweat out of something. It's not that big a deal.
like a sauna.
Yeah, it's very much so like a sauna. More like a oven. Yeah.
Okay.
Bacon on you.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, you know. It's just you have to factor that into the paint and the drying and all that kind of stuff.
The window work particularly, it can make that very difficult. That oil size can dry up quick.
Yeah, I had that problem last week. I'm in the middle of it now. Still, I'm on the water gilding side of it. But last week I was doing the oil gilding, and suddenly the sun came out. Yeah, and it like, you know, I checked it after a while. I was using 3-hour size, and I checked it after about an hour and a half, and it was still tacky. And about 20 minutes later, it was bone dry.
Wow.
Yeah, so I had to resize again. And,
we just had that. We were doing a different gold leaf job, but it wasn't water. It was oil gilding, I think. But earlier down, lower on, where I guess the sun hadn't hit as much and the heat hasn't risen too, it was fine. After I had, I don't know, what was it 20 minutes for those, and it was fine. But then I got up top and it was 5-10, and so I was dry by the time I went to go put leaf on it. So I had to do it over again. But
man,
all right.
Well, look, these are the things. It forces you to work quickly, and you can never really get too distracted from what you're doing. And I'm still learning that myself the hard way.
Yeah, it's interesting because sometimes I've came home and I'm just like, man, I am exhausted today, and I'm like, I didn't feel like I physically exerted myself too much, I guess, but mentally you're kind of just exhausted after some of those jobs because you have to be kind of on point with a lot of those things.
Well, plus as well, you're carrying Sean.
I'm sitting right here.
Did you say?
He's sitting right there. he drew a little tear, I think. Big guys do cry.
Right.
Okay, so
tell them what you're listening to this week, and then get off the microphone.
Yeah. All right, what are you listening to this week then?
Me?
Yeah.
We just saw a band at this festival that was right here in Denton. So I've been listening to this band called Best Coast.
Okay, I'm going to make a note of them. Best Coast, all right.
Which is kind of funny because they sing a lot about California. So I don't know how Sean will feel about them, but
I was born in California.
But they're actually pretty good.
Boys playlists coming Sean's way after this,
Okay. Cool.
Okay, so best what? Best Coast?
Yeah, Best Coast.
Okay. And what else?
Let's see.
Guilty pleasures, please.
Guilty pleasures. Oh man, that's guilty pleasure. Man, I always love listening to The National. That's my favorite.
Oh yeah.
They're one of my favorite bands. Concert, they're great live. They're almost better. I think they're better live actually. But
I didn't see them live, but I saw them on a TV thing live. They did some shows in the UK recently, and it was televised. They were a cracking band, really good band.
They're very good. And so when I'm just kind of don't know what I'm listening to, I'll turn them on and then I'll figure something else out. But I always dig them. And
to Van Morrison when you come into Sean's place.
Oh yeah, that's half the time what he's got on. That or some Texas country of some sort.
Cool, good combination.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Well, man, listen, it was great talking to you.
You too, my friend. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, good stuff. And how do you say goodbye in Chinese?
In Chinese? 再见.
再见, my friend.
再见, my friend.
All right, I'm back. That wasn't even scripted. I didn't even know he's coming in at this time, so that worked out okay.
Well, I hope he didn't come in empty-handed, Sean. I hope he brought in, your foot.
I got him a muffin.
He brought himself a muffin, yes.
Well, how do you know it was from me? I didn't say.
We know. So, that looks like you guys touched on some of the same things we were already talking about. That's interesting.
Yeah, and
the struggle is real.
The struggle is real, folks. But hang in there is the moral of the story. And actually, I wanted to ask you, what's your take on all of this now with the Cleveland thing, and what you're looking back after a couple of months with hindsight, and have you got a philosophy on it yet to kind of,
I have such mixed feelings about doing the workshop and doing the talk up there and everything. It was a great experience. I loved going to Cleveland. We had a great time, really connected with a lot of people. But it does take its toll to do that stuff, You're disconnecting for essentially a week, because even if you're only there for a few days, there's travel time and there's getting stuff off your calendar and all that stuff and making sure you have bills paid. And but on the converse side to that, we've already gotten, probably 7-8 emails from people who said, hey, we had a great time. We really enjoyed learning some of that stuff. And so, I mean, it's meaningful and it's rewarding and it's worth doing. But, then there's the other side of it. The practical side of it can get challenging. I don't know how you could do it on a regular basis. Like I know Mike Myers flying around all over the world, literally, doing those workshops, and I don't know how he's managing that as far as his business at home, and home life. I don't know how you would do it. I'm not wired for
I think
it.
they have a butler. They line up a butler especially for him. They meet at the airport. I recently just saw him on a really cool little thing. You know the guy Sam Roberts you interviewed?
Yeah.
Sam Roberts,
Yeah.
Go Science. Well, he's got a new project on the go, and if you go on to Creative Review co.uk,
Okay.
it's like a kind of it's actually a magazine, but it has a website magazine thing as well. And Mike and Sam and this other guy, Craig Winslow, who's an experimental designer, Sean.
Experimental?
He's an experimental designer.
What does that mean?
You'll have to go on and check it out because what they did was they came up with a project to do projection mapping on ghost signs.
Okay.
So existing ghost signs that were quite faint and faded,
Right.
have this kind of it was just on over the weekend, and so they were kind of like a nighttime installation project of the restored files that this guy Craig Wilson worked on, to restore the ghost signs in this really cool, interesting way.
Okay.
So they basically mapped out the whole, the borders, all the text, but they did this. It sounds kind of so what, but the way they did it was really cool.
I'll check that out. That sounds cool.
Yeah, because it kind of revealed the ghost lettering, like the restored ghost lettering, in a way that, like, those old Houdini type magic tricks or a seance where the ghost appears, like a kind of, it becomes like a kind of like a camera trick.
Right.
It was done in that way, and it was very, very smart. And there in the middle of it was your friend and mine, Minnesota Mike.
Okay.
And he had a big crowd around him, and they're doing talks and all this stuff. And again, I'm thinking, God, yeah, same thing. How does he do it? It's a huge amount of energy.
Yeah. I think he's got a huge amount of energy. I think he's just one of those people that's got the drive to do it. I don't think I could do it. I mean, even coming back after Ireland, like, I kind of crashed and burned for a couple of weeks just trying to get back into the rhythm of things, and and that wasn't even that intensive. I think probably for me the most tiring thing of doing those kind of projects is the interaction with new people. I'm definitely an introvert in social settings, so it's like, the more people you meet, it's like the more tired you feel.
Of course.
But if Meyer is an extrovert, then he, from everything I've read, extroverts they gain energy from social interaction, and introverts are depleted by it. Briggs-Meyer test.
What's that?
It's called the Briggs-Meyer test here in the U.S., and it's this thing where you answer all these gazillion of questions, and then it kind of gives you an overview of what your personality type is. It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah. Well, I can identify with some of that, actually. We had a 50th surprise birthday party on Saturday night for friend of a friend of a friend. I was thinking, why are we going to this? I'm exhausted. I mean, I was working Saturday and Sunday, and I was kind of really just didn't want to go,
Yeah.
And I was just so wrecked, because again, you're speaking to people that, and they're very nice people, but if you don't have it in the tank, and you've nothing left over after your work, it's hard to kind of, you're gonna, like, this week now I'm back to work, and I feel like I really didn't have a break. I'm just really now running out of steam today, and I'm leaving you in a minute to go back down to this job that I'm working on. Try and get out of there before the chippies, we call carpenters chippies here. They're coming in, chippies, and electricians are sparks.
Chippies and sparks.
Yeah, so I've been working around the sparks all week, which were fine. 2 English guys. It feels like I'm in London, because it's like, oh, mate, yeah, you're right, yeah, I'm all right, you're right. But the chippies are coming in tomorrow, and it's just going to be dust everywhere, stuff everywhere, and it just, anyway, so I'm going to try tonight to get done.
Well, then I'm going to cut you loose so you can go finish that. But before I do, we got to talk music.
Oh, yeah.
So I know you've been listening to this new band because you sent me a link earlier, and that's all I listened to all this morning.
Yeah, no, good. Again, it was just a friend of mine put me onto them, and I'd heard of them as well over in and out, kind of half tuned into them. And I hope I'm pronouncing it properly. Bon Ivers, I think that's what they're called.
Cole saying Bon Iver.
Okay, Bon Iver. Okay, even better.
Yeah,
that's far more sophisticated than my version.
Listen to 3 different albums by them this morning. Really like them.
Yeah,
good group.
Yeah, cool. So that was a good one, and I just been listening to a lot of classical music. Joseph Canteloup, songs of the Auvergne, just south of France, kind of peasant sort of songs, but they've been orchestrated beautifully by this guy Joseph Canteloup. And so that's been nice to work on. And the client came in this morning and got some video of me working with the classical music on in the background, and she posted it on Twitter, which I'm not on, but I'm getting all this stuff kind of coming back and forth on my email about it. And so that's really what I'm listening to. What about you?
I've been really digging into rockabilly because I'm going to be doing that radio show. So I've had a decent collection of rockabilly, but most of it's old stuff that I'm familiar with, like going back into
older,
like like late 40s, early 50s on up to the 60s.
Okay.
Everything from like Link Ray in the 60s down to like Moon Mullican in the late 40s. Wanda Jackson, not sure if you're familiar with her.
Oh, yeah.
She was kind of a like icon of rockabilly for a lot of years. There's Maddox, Rose Maddox. They're kind of a crazy thing. You should look them up. Very entertaining. I think that was mostly 50s, but it's her and her brothers, and they had like this really unique sound. So just digging into a lot of that. But then I've got a buddy of mine. He's a designer in Dallas, Steve Jordan. He's into a lot more of the newer stuff. So he sends me these mixes he makes, which exposes me to a lot more of the newer rockabilly. So I'm going to kind of mix in both when I'm spinning records on my show.
Yeah. What show is this, and how do we hear it?
Details to be revealed soon. They've asked all of us to be very low key about it, but it'll be details soon. I'm just going to say that.
Yes.
It'll be on an FM radio station, but you'll also be able to listen to it through the interwebs.
Great. Well, Sean, they did very well to get you. They're very lucky that you agreed to do it. I think it'll be a great show.
I begged them. No, it'll be good. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be called the Hot Rod Hour, and it's going to be a combination of like old rockabilly, new rockabilly type stuff, and then kind of talking about like current events that are within like car stuff going on in the Dallas area. It'll be fun.
Great. All right. Well, listen. Good. Best of luck with it.
Thank you.
And it's great to talk to you again. I haven't talked to you in a while.
I know. Tell Nikki and Seth hello.
And same to your nearest and dearest.
Okay. And let's schedule the next one soon so that we can keep up with our monthly obligation to the listeners.
Okay.
Okay.
We could touch on my identity crisis vis-a-vis my new Jeep branding overhaul project.
You really are Larry David. I've been going through Curb Your Enthusiasm again lately, and it's like I think you're Larry David, and I'm Richard Lewis.
No, oh my God, you're so Richard Lewis. I was going to say Jimmy Ignatoski from Taxi.
Oh, thanks. On that note, I'll talk to you later.
Okay, Hepcats. This is the part of the show where we play a song from the Arhoolie archive, so pay attention. You can get these tunes from the legendary Arhoolie Records at arhoolie.com. Now sit back, open up some One Shot, crank up the volume, and expand your minds, babies.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we're going to give a demonstration of a New Orleans traditional jazz funeral without the body. Unless somebody drop dead.
it to your Lord in prayer.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, folks. Tune in next episode for more madness from Sean and Tom. This episode was brought to you by Full City Rooster Coffee Roasters, makers of the Sign Painters Blend, the coffee Sean and Tom drink in their studios every day. Also brought to you by RebelRouserHotRods.com. Licensed apparel by Sean Starr, including support your local sign painter gear.